In this lesson, we'll be creating a web page using CSS to work with our layouts, as well as decorating the page, including the background as you see here, and this nice little drop shadow on the header. Why don't I just run this in the browser right now, and we'll talk around the finished file here. So what we have here is a header section, and if I mouse over each of these graphics, they do get replaced with another graphic, which is the JavaScript rollover feature that will apply. And they are also links. They're all links to an external website that I won't click on just yet. You'll notice too this header section up here has been created using CSS, and this little drop shadow is also generated from CSS. I have a background image as well. And you can see here as I scroll down, there is a footer section at the bottom. In between the header and the footer, we have some content. Primarily what I have here is one big div tag that I have a class style attached to called container. Within the container, we have two other areas. One outlined by the tag called section, which is this main left area that has some text, an H1 or an H2 tag headline, and some graphic images at the bottom here. And then this column down here, which is another set of tags using the aside tags. And then we're going to use floats and clears and so on to set up the layout with that. So I've got a header in here and an image and two placeholder paragraphs as well. And again, at the bottom, we have our footer, which is also pretty well being established by CSS, if you will. Okay, so before we get started, let me just talk about the preparation of this web page, if you will. I'm going to start by bouncing out to my desktop and just give you a quick look at the root folder. Nothing unusual here. Folder for your images, folder for your CSS, and we'll keep our HTML at the root level. I was working on a little test file earlier, but we'll just ignore that one. So this is the finished file that we're looking at. And I do have an array of images. Some of them I'm going to have you create. I will provide the Photoshop file for you to ultimately generate these buttons, if you will, for the menu at the top. Okay? And you can see in here is my CSS file. All right, now the other thing here, let me just bounce over to Photoshop and show you that file. So a lot of the heavy lifting's been done on your behalf here. What you have here are a series of layers for 5 different images. And each one here, if I turn these layers off, we've got the basic sort of background layer. There's 5 different dogs, as you can see here. And that would be sort of the A version of a button. So let's say that's button 01A. And to do the mouse over version, I just turned on this colored layer, which is using a multiply blend mode. And I'm also adding some text. So I've got a number for each of these. Okay. And these are for the buttons. So you'll use these to generate. So you would just have to go File, Export. Where are we here? Export as. It's probably fine. And just, I would recommend JPEGs. PNGs are fine as well. Okay. And you will export those to the image folder in your root directory. Okay. So you should be creating 10 graphics altogether based on this. So then the next one, of course, would be the next image up. I would export that and then export its partner with the color turned back on and the next number up turned back on. Okay, and again, you will end up with 10 exported JPEGs that should wind up in your images folder on your root directory. All right, so that's part of the content creation ahead of even getting into code and creating HTML and CSS. All right, so having said all that, let's jump over to Dreamweaver. Okay, so maybe I'll just have a quick look at the code here. I'm just going to go to Code View, and we'll just scroll from top to bottom. So this is all the JavaScript. I'm not going to comb through that with you, but let's just look at the contents within our body tag for the most part. There's my body tag. So I've got the header right here, and inside the header I've got a table. And that is the table holding the 5 graphic images. And inside of each table cell, you can see the particulars here. It does have the JavaScript callouts as well. But you can go in here and you can see which image is which. Okay. And then closing the header tag right there. And then below that, I've got a main area section, if you will, called class equals container. And it is a div tag. and the class is what will dictate most of its properties. Inside of there, I've got two other elements nested. I've got the section, which will act as the left column, if you will, in that main content area. And you can see within there, I've got a headline with my H1 and two sets of paragraphs, which were generated using my snippets down below here, using the HTML snippets, which we'll use when it comes time. Then I've got two images, one right here and one right here. And that's really the contents of this section area on the left. Okay, and then on the right, we've got the aside section, or rather the aside tags, sorry. And in there, similar setup. It is narrow, which will be defined with our CSS, but I've got an H2 title, and then I've got a paragraph with an image at the top, and then two other placeholder paragraphs, if you will. And that closes off my aside. All right, so just to go back, I've got a div tag with two main tags inside of it, the section and the aside. Okay, and then that div tag closes around that, and then on its own, just below that, is the footer. And inside of the footer, I've just got one headline tag, an H2 tag with some content in between that. Okay, so HTML-wise, pretty straightforward. All right, so there we go with that. So maybe at this point, let me just reduce the view here. And we'll start a new file. So I'm just going to start a new file. Again, this is assuming you've already set up the site, you've already created your images, and they're all good to go in your images folder. Okay. I'm going to use the same folder. So I will create a second CSS file for the specific page itself. Okay. For now, let's just create the new HTML file. New. And again, for the title, just use your first and last name. Okay, and that's all I need there. Click create, and I've got a nice blank file. I've yet to save it, so the next step, of course, will be to do a save as. Make sure I save it in my root folder. Save as. And to ensure it goes in the root folder, click the site root button. Okay, so I know that I am at the right level where I want to save it. And I believe this is lesson 8, but if it's not, just use the lesson number behind your last name. So file name is last name 08. I'll just say 08A. And we'll save that. And that should appear over here. And there it is. Okay, just a blank file, right? I could leave it on live. I think I'm going to switch over to design mode for now. Maybe come back to live mode later when I start to apply certain effects. But for now, I'm just going to click in my design view at the top. And I'm just going to insert the big chunks, if you will. All right, a number of ways I can do this, but I think I'll start with the insert pull down menu here. And I'm going to start with my header at the top. All right, I will leave the placeholders for now and just deal with those sort of on a second pass, if you will. So add insertion point is fine. I'm going to click OK. And I can see in my code view where I'm at right now. So I'm just going to keep adding things here. I might need to, since I'm in design mode, I'm going to just click after the closing header tag and do an insert. And I'll do that for each insert, I guess. Next one down, I guess, will be the div tag. Again, add insertion point. And I can name it now. So I am going to apply the name container. I won't be creating any styles yet, but I will apply the class right now. Okay, click OK. And there you see it's applied. Good reason for doing that now is when I come back later and start to apply effects to the container, I will see them manifest themselves live on my page. Okay. Now, within this container, I do want to nest the section and the aside tags. So I guess I can click inside of here and go insert. And we'll start with the section tags. Okay, and add insertion point is fine. You have other options here as well. I could go after start of tag, before end of tag. Since I'm already in the tag, in between the tags, all of these would work for me. So I'll just leave it at insertion point. Okay. Now it's here though that I would want to put it after. So I'm going to click after the closing section tag in my code view here and insert the aside. And there we go with that one. Add insertion point. Okay. And last but not least will be our footer. But with our footer, I want to guarantee that it's outside of that div tag so that it's not nested with the other two elements, if you will. So just click outside of the closing div tag here, and then I'll do my insert. Footer is what I'm looking for. Footer. There we go. And again, at insertion point works for me here. The point is that you have it outside of this div tag so that it's not bunched up with these guys. Okay, so the footer is on its own down below. Again, let's just save that. And we can now add a bit of content to this. So I'm just going to start at the header at the top, and I'll add a table, and we'll just drop in our initial images that we've created in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to click inside of here at the top and select all that content, and I'll delete it. And with my insert still in place, I'm just going to go insert table. And what I want is a table with 1 row and 5 columns, and you can see my settings are kind of there already because I had tried this before. So let's see here, rows 1 row, 5 columns, yes. I'll start with a width of 800 pixels, but I'm probably going to manually adjust that as I go. But I do want to have a border on it with a thickness of 4, at least for now. Okay, I'll leave you decide what kind of border, if any border, you'd like to have on your own. But I'm going to go with 4 pixels at this point and click OK. So there's my basic table with the 5 table cells. And if I click inside of this first table cell, I'm going to use my insert command to put my first image in there. Again, these images were already placed in my images folder. But to be prudent, I'm going to click Options, Site Route, and then drill down. So the naming convention for my buttons was dog underscore button number, and if it's A, it's the first button, and if it's B, it will be the rollover button. So I'm going to choose dog 01A and just move along like that. Now I'm going to tighten these as I go as well, the dividers in between each table cell. I've clicked in the next one, and I'll just repeat this 4 more times. All right, so I'm looking for dog 02A. There we go. Again, I'm just going to tighten these table cells up. Now you can only drag as far as the image will allow, so that's why I'm feeling pretty free to drag far to the left. Okay, I've clicked inside of this third table cell. We're going to add our third image. That would be dog 03A, and I just double clicked on that one to be a little faster. 2 more to go here. Insert image. Dog 04A, and then finally in this last table cell, dog 05A. Okay, and I'm just going to grab the whole table from the outside here and grab the handle and just tighten it as tight as it'll go, and I can just click away here. Definitely want to save that. Okay, so got some of the content. As I said, we're not going to create our space right now. That will get created using CSS and so on. But I'm just going to come down to the next area here, and I guess that'll be inside of my section. So I will actually highlight that content inside of the section down in my code view. Okay, I probably will use my other file as a reference, so let me click over there really fast. And we'll just take a look at the content here. So I've got a title here. I believe it's in an H1 tag, and I'm more or less going to repeat the content that I see here. So this is the section tag headline. So let's go in here, and I can just type that in here, I guess. This is the section tag headline. Just check my spelling. Okay. And I'll highlight that, and we'll just format that as an H1. I already had attached my properties panel to the bottom. So if you haven't done so, go to Window Properties and just anchor it to the bottom, if you will. Unless you use another method using insert. So there's my heading 1. Okay. And I'm just going to click at the end of that. And let's just hit our return key in the design view to start a new paragraph. And here I'm just going to add 2 paragraphs of placeholder text, commonly known as lorem ipsum. In my snippets tab, again, if you don't see your snippets, you can access it through the window. I'm going to go down here, and there's a folder called CSS snippets, HTML snippets, and so on. It's the HTML that I want to open, and just find add lorem ipsum and double click it. All right, and I'm going to click at the end of that paragraph, hit my enter key to start a new paragraph, and just do that twice. Ad lorem ipsum. Okay. Now I'm going to hit my return key again. Actually, I'm not. I'm just going to hit my space bar. I'll put a period at the end, I guess. I'm going to insert two images. I don't want them to be inside of paragraphs. I can show you on the finished file why, because I'd like them to flow if the page gets too narrow. So I am simply going to do an insert with my images here. So insert image, and the two that I want are called Ranger and Marley. So we'll start with Ranger. Okay, and then right after that one, I'm going to click just to the right of it. And it will look a little weird for now, okay? But we'll manage the content after with CSS. I'm just going to insert the second image at this point. And this one is called marley.jpg. And there we go. So I've got a couple of paragraphs and then some images that are actually like inline elements. That's why it looks like this right now. I'm not worried about how it looks at this point, but I will save my file. And let me go back to the finished one and kind of demonstrate. I'll actually just pop it in the browser really fast and demonstrate the intent here. So we put in this content here, this here, and this here, and these images here. If I was to narrow my browser window, you see how that image reflows. And that's why I have them without using the p tags, because they will naturally flow. Now, my page would have to be super wide, I think, for them to even approach this paragraph. So they're pretty safe on their own with this setup. But if it gets too narrow, at least that one will jump down to the bottom. Okay. So we've added this content here so far, and I guess we'll add the content now for this side. Okay. So let's go into our unfinished file, and that would be in the aside, but you can see here in the code view, right? My section tag is filled up with the appropriate content. So I will just come down here, and I'm going to click here. I believe, yeah, okay, that is the aside. So I'm just going to click in there, and if I can just cheat really fast here, I've got a headline, this is my aside tag. I believe I used an H2 for that. So let's just type that in. This is my aside tag. Select that to highlight it. I'll format that as an H2. There we go. Okay, I'm going to click to the right of that. And let's see. I will hit my enter key and I will apply or insert the other image here. And I believe the other one was called Two Dogs. Okay. And let's see here. Yeah, that looks like the one. And it is very big here, actually. If you need to resize it, let me go over here. Just set it to 300 pixels wide with the lock on. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so with that image selected, I'm going to come down here. Now, the provided image may be a different size, all right, so just check on that. But ultimately, I want it to be 300 pixels wide, so I have the image selected. I'm down in my properties. The lock is on, therefore it will stay proportional. Just hit 300, hit my tab key, and there we go. Okay, and that's much better. I will save as I go, and I believe I have 2 more paragraphs following that, so I'm going to click on the right, hit my return key, and I'm just going to do a couple of ad lorem ipsums snippets right here. Return key, 1 more of those. Okay, let's save that again. Now, if I was to preview this, I'll do a quick preview in browser. It's not going to look like much yet, but there is what we have so far. Okay, and again, the layout will be managed once we start applying CSS. But most of our content is there. We're just going to add a little bit of text in our footer at this point. Okay. And let me just kick back to Dreamweaver. Here's the footer, I believe. Yes, it is. Let's see here. I think I'm going to get you to put your first and last name. And then I'll leave a space and a hyphen and just say footer or footer area. Okay. I will highlight that, and I'm just going to format that, I think, as an H2, and if I change my mind later, so be it. But we'll go with a heading 2. Okay. And save. So it's at this point that we'll establish a CSS external style sheet and start to style this from the top down, if you will. I'm going to refer to my existing file for my settings, so I'll be bouncing back and forth. But to begin with, let's just go over to our CSS Designer panel. And I'm just going to start a new CSS style sheet by clicking Create a new CSS style. I'll just go straight to Browse here. And again, I'm going to click Site Root to make sure I'm in the right directory, and then in CSS I'm going to click on there, and I'll just call this one, call it last name again, lesson number, and I believe this is 08, so I'm going to go with 08 and click Save. Then I'll click OK, and we'll start with the body tag. So we'll create just some defaults, if you will. We'll start, maybe we can actually put in the background image and set some fonts and colors. So if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of cheat over here and go to my settings in the body, and we'll just see here. We will be closing the margins, so we will declare margins to all be 0. I can see I've got the text white. I'm using Gotham as my font. 14 pixel font size is the default. I do have a background color of black, but I also have a background image, if you will, right here. And we will set the background size to what's called cover. Okay, so quite a few little properties as our default for the body tag. So let me go to my file here, and we'll just start by adding a selector. I'll just narrow that down to the word body, hit my enter key, and start to apply. So I'm going to turn off show set. And let's see here. I guess I can start with the background. Background color, I'll formally set it to black because it might take a second for the image to download, and it just looked cool, I thought, with black as the default versus white. So I'm going to start with that, and then quickly come down to the background image, to the browse folder, and it's the one called Pexels Pixabay. So I'm just going to select that, open that, and again down under background size, choose cover. Okay, background size, choose cover. All right, now it's at this point as well that it might look a little more weird in the design view than in live view. I'm going to switch over to live just for a second here. And as you can see, the background in particular, right? But there it is. I'm going to do a save all right now and just continue with that. Okay, so our other particulars had to do with text, I noticed. I'm going to go over to my text. And for text color, now that I've got this background, I'm going to set the color default to white. Okay, to start with. And you can see there, it's already much more readable. Font family, let's see if I have Gotham here. I do, so I'm going to go with that. It's a sans serif, and that was my main issue, or my main desire, to get a sans serif. Font size, I believe I set the other one to 14 pixels, so to be consistent, I'm going to change that to 14. There we go. And let me see here. I'm going to click on show set. So I've got my text, my background image. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a look at the existing one to compare. Oh, my margins, yes. So I want to set my margins as well. I think other than that, I'm good to go on the background, the body tag specifically, that addresses the background rather. So I'm going to turn off show set and go down to margins. Now I'm going to click in the shorthand here, and I'm going to type it here, a 0px, and hit my enter key. All right, you might have noticed a slight adjustment, right? If you don't declare it, there is an 8 pixel margin as a default for all the browsers. So this tightens everything up to the top and to the edges. All right. Again, I'm going to do a save all. I see my CSS asterisk there, therefore it hasn't been saved to the latest change. Save all. Real quick preview in the browser. And I'm running it in Firefox here. And there's my background. My content still needs to be managed, but we're getting there. Okay. And maybe I'll actually take this out ultimately as well. But you can see our background, and if I resize the browser window, the background does adjust accordingly, and you notice my content does flow at this point. Okay, so we're good to go on that. Let's go back to Dreamweaver. Okay, so we'll set up the header next, I guess. Let me just scroll up here, and I'm just going to start a new selector for the header. And I'll just type that in, header. Okay, hit my enter key till it accepts it. And we'll start by, I'm just going to scroll down so I can see the top part. Remember the table is inside of the header. And we'll start maybe with a background color. And I'm just going to pick sort of an olive, sort of green if I can here. And maybe something like that, and hit my enter key. All right, there we go. Okay, it's a start. And let's see here. I'm going to give it some space on the top and the bottom, so that can be done using the padding. So I'm just going to go up to layouts here. And maybe I'll just scroll a bit as I go along. Maybe I'll try 20. You know what? I'm just going to go short 10 and 10. So you see the 10 pixels at the top right here. We'll add 10 to the bottom as well. There we go. Okay, and to center that, I'm just going to switch back to design mode to do this. And then select the table. And down in my properties, I'm just going to set my line to center. And there we go. Okay, I'm just clicking on the right side. So maybe the next step will be to add the drop shadow. And also, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this text here while I'm looking at it. There we go. Okay, just do a save all again here. Okay, my next step, I guess, will be to decorate it with what's called a box shadow. So I can go over to the background properties, and that kind of shortcuts me a little bit. And just at the bottom here, we have box shadow. So I'm just going to check on some of these, and I'm going to bring it to 4 to 5 pixels for the shadow. And I know on my old one was 4 pixels horizontal, 6 pixels vertical. So I will just recreate those settings, I guess, here. My blur was at 14. And let's see here. The color was set to black. And you can't see that in design mode, so I'm actually going to switch over to live mode to just have a peek here. And there's my nice little shadow, as you see there. I'm just going to do a save all right now. And if you don't mind, I'm going to click on Show Set to shorten my settings here. And just compare this to the previous one that I created. I just want to see here. Oh, I had a spread of 4 pixels. Let me just see what that does. I think that just affects sort of the softness a little bit. But I'll just bring that up to 4 as well, I guess. I'll just type in 4px if it's hard to use the scroller. And you notice it did kind of give it a little more, it pushed it a little farther out. So these are little settings that you can toy with and experiment with. But there we go. I'm just going to do a save all. And the other thing I wanted to do with the header was to actually have it stick to the top. Let me do a very quick preview right now. And, you know, as I scroll, it scrolls. I don't want it to scroll. I actually want it to be glued to the top. And that's a position element known as fixed. Okay, so let's just pop back over to Dreamweaver and add that feature as well. So I'm going to uncheck Show Set. I'm still on the header. It is a layout position element, and it's called fixed. Now, where will it be fixed? I'm just going to set the top to 0 pixels. All right, and I'll let the rest go on auto, if you will. 0 pixels. Hit my enter key there, and let's just try that. Now again, I will just, oh, you know what? Once I did that, yes, you noticed that it narrowed, so I actually have to go back and play with the width. So let's just go back up to width, and we'll set it to 100%. Okay, I'm going to use percentage, and set that to 100. It's one way to get it to fill that space. There we go. All right. Not 101, but 100. But as you see, you can exceed the 100%. All right, save that, save all, and we'll have another look at that in the browser. Okay, so it's good, but there is an issue, right? You can see that there is an issue where my content now underneath is going beneath it. So I'd have to push that other content down. So maybe we'll start to address those issues now. Okay, so if you recall, we do have a class declared already for the div tag, which is all of that main content, right? And that's what we want to push down. So why don't we go over here and actually initiate that as well. So I'm going to click on my add container. Now because I had that selected, see what happened? It automatically put it in dot container. If it doesn't come in like that, you can manually put in dot container. I'm just going to accept that with my enter key. And let's see here. I'll uncheck show set. And I want to push that down, right? So that would be, I could use my margins and I can push it down from the top. So why don't I try that? And I'll just organically start to push this stuff. Live mode is definitely better for this. It will give you a much more accurate representation, but ultimately test it in your browser and tweak it accordingly. Okay, so here we are with my margins here. And you see what that does? It's pretty sweet, right? I'm just going to push it till it looks like it's about where I want to have it. Okay, still have to deal with the width and the layout and stuff, but at least now it's not going to sit under that fixed header by default. So I've pushed it down and organically, and it says 214 pixels. Use your eyes for this. I'm just going to do a save all though very quickly and have a peek in the browser. Okay, and there we go. And as you see, it scrolls. The content's going to scroll underneath that fixed header, which is really sweet. All right. So there we go. And I guess now it's time to deal with the contents, if you will, of our container, which is holding two other block elements. One is the section tags, and one is the content inside of the aside tags. Okay. So that's going to lead to some floats and some clears and so on. And let's just go back to Dreamweaver and address that. Now I'm going to deal with the width first of all, though, in the container. And I'm going to say I'd like my width to be 80% of the page. Okay, so I'm going to start with my width, go down to a percentage, and it seems to have disappeared almost there because it was at 0. Let me just shoot this up to 80 if I can get that with my scroll. There we go. Okay, now I also want it to be centered, so I'm going to use my margins auto settings down here. Auto, and you see how it moved on the left, and we'll just put auto on the right, and that is the trick on how to center contents of a div tag in this case. There we go. Again, save all. Save all. So now my stuff is stacking. So I want to divide these sections into a left and a right. So why don't I come down here and add the those two block elements. So I'm going to add section. And I'm just going to leave it empty for a second, and I'm going to create the second one called aside. So I can work on them both at the same time pretty well and make my adjustments as I'm on the fly. So I'm going to go back to section. Now with section, I'm going to say I want it to be 70% of the width within its parent, right? This is the parent, the div tag. So it'll never go beyond that 80% in width, but within there, I'm going to bring it down to 70 as well. So we're going to go down to width. We'll set that to percentages. And again, I'll just drag that up to 70 if I can accurately get that. There we go. And I'm going to go to the aside and set that one to a 25% width. And that should leave enough room, I think. And if not, I will just adjust those numbers. So I selected the aside selector. And on the width, I'm going to go down to percentage again and drag that up to 25. And let's see here, 25. If I can't quite get it, I'll type it in. So I'm just going to come in here, highlight it, and just be specific in my typing, 25. Now, I still need to float them as well, right? So let me go back to section. And I can go down, I'll just scroll down here. I'll float that to the left, and then we'll float the aside to the right. So I'm highlighting the side selector and I'm going down to float, float right. There we go. Okay, so we are definitely getting there. All right, that's a big improvement. Let me do a save all and a quick look in the browser once again. Okay, so I will deal with the layouts for these elements as well, but we're definitely getting someplace. Okay. And I'm not even sure where this came from, but I will take a look. All right. Back to Dreamweaver. Oh, it's my footer. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that now. Actually, I will worry about it now. The footer, part of the footer was hanging in there. I forgot I had put my name in the footer. So the footer, I want to sit below both of these floating elements. So I'm going to use a clear, and I'm going to clear both. That means nothing floating can sit on the left nor the right. Therefore, it's going to assume its new position below these elements. Okay, so I'm going to go actually add my footer. Footer. Had I clicked inside the footer area, I guess it would have shown up here as a hint. Nonetheless, I've typed it in, footer, and I did say I wanted to do a clear left and right. So clear both. And let's just scroll here, and there it is at the bottom. So again, I will create some space in the footer, I guess. Might as well do that now. And that would be by adding some padding. But also, actually add a background color first. Okay, so background color. Again, I'm going to stick with those sort of olive greens that I've been working with. I could copy that hexadecimal number if I wanted to match it, but maybe I'm going to go with something a little darker for the bottom here like that. And hit accept. So there's the basic footer background. And let's go and add some padding to create more space inside of that area. So I'm just going to drag here. And let's see, maybe I'll go 10 and 10. All right. And I'll go 10 on the underside as well. There we go. And I guess I will just center the text. So I'm going to select that text. I will go back to my design view to do that. Select that text. And you know what? Actually, I won't select that. I'll center text as one of the footer properties in the CSS. Let's do it that way instead. So there we'll go text, text align center. Okay, save all. Take a quick look again. All right, so now our footer is at the bottom and it has an area designated, has some background colors, it's taking up a certain amount of room, and it's sticking to the bottom of my content. So we just need to massage this area a bit more, and then we should be good to go. Okay. And you see here, if I go wider, they do flow. All right. Now, I'm noticing a small little thing I'd like to fix. See how these are kind of like centered sort of thing? I realized, and let me go over to my Dreamweaver code view here, that these images are actually still nested inside of this paragraph. My intent was to actually put them outside of that paragraph, okay? So outside of this paragraph, so that they're not part of that paragraph. So I'm just going to, I'm actually going to move this up here. And just to make it more clear, I'll return this on a new line, and you'll see that the images are outside of that paragraph. When I click over here away, it creates more space, and it will flow a little differently. Let me just do another save all and take a very quick look in my browser. Okay, and that's what I was expecting there. Again, but that's why we test it, right? There's a little tweak, but I actually took these two images. They were nested inside of this paragraph tag. They are no longer part of that paragraph. They are floating on their own. And if I get too narrow, yes, it will reflow them like that. Okay, just a tweak, but it was actually a very important tweak. It did certainly change the look on how these things displayed. Okay, so let's see here. I guess we can decorate these with some borders. If I go over to the finished version, I'll just show you here. I'm going to go back to live view as well on this. Finished one has some white borders here. So I have a custom, a class style called picture frame, and I just got a border set up, 4 pixels solid white. Okay, and that was applied expressly to each photo. So if I go back over here, I will start by just creating the new selector. I'll call it dot picture frame. Okay, and we'll just click off show set, and I did say I was just going to go with a border here. Let's see, width pixels, I think I had it at 4. Something I can always change later if I don't like it. Style, must have a style. Solid, and for color we'll just set it to white. There we go. And now I will apply that to the images. So I can go into each image and select it in my HTML. Let me go back to my design mode here. Select the image, and then under class, I can apply picture frame to each one of these. Okay, there we go, there we go, there we go. All right, save all once again. Quick look in the browser. All right, there we have it. And if it flows narrowly, it will adjust the stacking order of those two pictures. Okay. All right, we're almost home on this. If I scroll down though, I can see it's a little tight down here. So if I wanted to make some space below here, I can again work with my margins. In this case, maybe either on the section or on the aside to push it down on the bottom margin. So let's try one of those, okay? I'm going to go over to Dreamweaver, and I'm just going to scroll down here, and let's try, this one's pushing farther down, so maybe we'll work from the aside point of view. And under margins, if I just drag here, you see how it pushed that down, all right? So you can just adjust that accordingly. If I go to 50, you know, I'm going to leave it at 50. It just gives a little more breathing space down there. Had this been the file hanging out further, maybe it would be that one. Or if it reflows, I might want to set that one to 50 as well. Why don't I just do a save all, do a really fast test here, and see how that pans out. Okay. So when I scroll to the bottom of my page, I do have a little more room, but let's just see here if I make it narrow. See how that's tight? So you know what? I'm going to also add a 50 to that one as a little bit of a safety. Okay. So whatever the situation with the browser width, at least there will be at least 50 pixels from this content and the footer area. So I will switch back over to Dreamweaver and add that feature as well to the section. And the margins. I probably won't see anything manifest here, but I'm going to set this to 50 as well. And I can test that in the browser to see if it keeps that 50 pixel distance. Okay, almost there. There we go. Save all. Another quick test. And I will make the browser more narrow. And let's go to the bottom, and there is that added 50. So I put it on both the section and the side. Depending which one's hanging lower, it will at least ensure at any rate that there will be a minimum of 50 pixels between this content and the footer. So the last thing to take this home is to actually add the JavaScript rollover features to these 5 images in our header. All right, and I will ask you to also put external links on those. For the sake of speed, I'm just going to put the same link on all of them, but I'd like you to put 5 different external links on those. So let's just go back to Dreamweaver and finish that thought. You will need to be in design mode for this next section, and that requires the behaviors panel as well. It also, of course, requires that you have your artwork pre-created in the images folder to allow for this. So I'm just going to select them, so you highlight the image. Now I'm going to put, like I said, I'm going to put the same link in all of these. I can do it either before or after. So I'm going to save it for the end here. And I'll start by selecting the image to create my JavaScript rollover feature. Click on the plus sign, swap image. Oh, you know what? Let me hit cancel here. There's something that should have been done ahead of time in prep for this. I need to give each of these guys an ID. So I'm going to select it down here and go to my properties. I'm just going to call it dog01. And then click on the second one, call it dog02, and so on. Okay. The JavaScript does require an ID for it to speak to the unique item on the page. So I'm at dog04 here and clicking that last one, and down in my properties ID window, dog05, hit my enter key. Definitely save that. And now we can start again one more time with feeling. So select that first image, click the plus sign. Now when I go to show swap image rather, I see it's highlighted and I can determine that that actually is the file that I wish to affect. Okay, so I'm going to browse for the mouse over feature, and that would be inside of my images. Now I'm going to just click options and click site root. Okay, and then just to ensure I'm in the right folder. So this was the first dog one, so I'm going to go dog01b. Okay, save that. I'm actually going to do just the one and test it. Okay, and while I'm here, I might as well complete the thought, and I'm just going to put my http://djolessons.com as my link. And maybe I will copy that to paste it in the rest later. Copy and hit my enter key and save all. And let's do a very quick test to make sure that rollover feature is going to work. There we go. Okay, so now that I know that works, I'll complete the other 4. All right, so back to Dreamweaver, taking this home. Select the next image, swap image. This is image number 2, so dog02A. Double click that to accept it. Click OK. Go on to the next image. Select it. Add the behavior, swap image. Again, I'm going to browse for that. And that would be the third one, I believe, dog03B. Moving on to the 4th image, select it. Swap image, browse for the file. That would be dog4B. And finally, the last one, select it on the screen. Click swap image. And that will be dog5B. Okay. Now I'm just going to quickly go through these, and down in my behaviors, paste in that link. Hit my enter key. That one looks like it already got it. Oh, that one no. Okay, so from here on in, select it. Whether I paste that in or type it in, it doesn't matter. My tab key, save. I'm going to do a save all. Save all. Okay. Let's have a look. If there's no mistakes, this should conclude the assignment. It's fairly comprehensive. We did a lot of layout with CSS, managing areas, decorating areas. We added a drop shadow. We locked the header to the top of the screen, right? A lot got done in this particular assignment. Okay, and again, you saw because that background image did take probably more than a second, I had that default black background so that at least the viewer could read this white text immediately. All right, so that was part of my considerations with my choice of colors. But as you see here, we've got our footer stuck to the top. Here are our mouse overs. And it looks like for some reason number 2 didn't work. Maybe I missed it, so let's go back, and that's why we test. I will select number 2. You know what? I think I probably swapped it with itself. So to delete that, you highlight it, and you're going to have to hit minus for this, and then select that element, minus for that, and I click it again, and I will repeat swap image, and this is for dog number 2. So that would be 2B, Save that. Test it again. See the importance of testing though. Even though I know how to do it, it doesn't mean I'm going to do it right every time. There we are. Okay. There's a lot of value in the troubleshoot. All right, so and I can see the little hand. If I click quickly here, it should take me to the site. And there we go. And we're back to our page with our beautiful little drop shadow. Our header that is fixed to the top, it's stuck to the top. The content rolls underneath it. Our footer is at the bottom. We've created space here. If I wanted to put more space in here, I could just go to my margins on my container and push it down even further with the top margin. If I wanted to create more space down here, I could go to either the section and or the aside tag and add to the margin bottom. Okay, so there we have it. Basic layout with HTML, CSS, and some decorative elements using JavaScript rollover features. And that is your assignment for today.